The first British law enacted in Ireland which specifically banned the use of the Irish language was Article 3 of the Statute of Kilkenny from 1367, which made it illegal for English colonists in Ireland to speak the Irish language and for the native Irish to speak their language when interacting with them.
This was followed in 1537 with the Statute of Ireland, an act for the English order, habit and language that prohibited the use of the Irish language in the Irish Parliament. In 1541, further legislation was passed which banned the use of Irish in the areas of Ireland then under English rule.
The Administration of Justice, Language Act, Ireland, was passed by the Irish Parliament in 1737. The Act not only forbids the speaking of Irish within the courtroom, it also prohibits the completion of legal documentation in Irish and imposes a financial penalty of £20 each time Irish is spoken in court in contravention of the law.
A notorious example of the Act resulting in a lethal miscarriage of justice is the infamous Mamtrasna murders case, whereby 8 Irish speakers were tried for murder in 1882. The majority of the accused were monoglots who spoke so little English that they had difficulty pronouncing their plea of not guilty. Their solicitor could not speak Irish and a policeman interpreted their evidence into English for the court. The accused were convicted by perjured testimony and one of them, Mamtrasna, was hanged for the crime. In 2011, the British Under-Secretary of State for Prisons stated that Soy was probably an innocent man but that he would not be seeking a royal pardon for him. On the 4th of April 2018, the President of Ireland issued a pardon exonerating Soy. Soy's trial took place at a watershed moment in the history of the Irish language, a generation after the famine and just prior to the birth of the Irish Revival movement. The level of spoken Irish before the famine stood at about 40% and rapidly declined thereafter.
Notwithstanding the secession of the south of Ireland from the United Kingdom in 1922, the situation regarding the use of the Irish language in legal cases in Northern Ireland has remained unchanged. About 6% of the population of the north of Ireland speak Irish today. Though the overwhelming majority of these speak it as a second language, there is a very vibrant Irish language community in urban areas of Derry, Belfast and further afield among young people who view the language as a vital part of their cultural and political identity.
In the 1998 Good Friday Agreement, the British government committed to recognise the importance of respect, understanding and tolerance in relation to linguistic diversity, including the Irish language. This was followed by the 2006 St Andrews Agreement, which included plans for an Irish Language Act that would give legal status for the first time to the Irish language within Northern Ireland. However, to date there has been no political progress on passing an Irish Language Act.
Mamtrasna made an unsuccessful appeal against the refusal. The judge, Lord Justice Girvan, acknowledged that it is legal to use Welsh in Welsh courts and Scots Gaelic in the Scottish courts, and accepted that the British government had made a commitment to promote the Irish language in the Good Friday Agreement. However, none of this impacted on his final ruling that allowing the use of Irish in the courts of Northern Ireland would frustrate the interests of justice.
At present, the only legal protection status which the Irish language has in Northern Ireland comes from the European Charter for Regional and the Minority Languages, to which the British government is a signatory. The Charter calls for the promotion of minority languages, the facilitation of their use in public life and the removal of restrictions which would discourage the maintenance of the language.
However, the impending British exit from the European Union means that the Irish language will soon lose the status which the Charter bestowed on the language in Northern Ireland. Recently, Martin O'Malley, the Sinn Féin politician and former finance minister of the Northern Ireland Executive, whose portfolio included responsibility for the regulation of the legal profession, announced that he was planning a new legal challenge to the Act, but giving the 2009 ruling against Mamtrasna, this seems unlikely to succeed. The primary, and avowed, purpose of the National Education Act of 1831 was to make good English children of bad Irish children, and one of the primary mechanisms of that forced conversion was the removal of their native language. By stripping the younger generation of their identity, Britain's colonial rule on this island nation could be made more effective, and enduring, than anything achieved through fire and sword. plantation and displacement. Consequently, the sole and only language of education in the national schools was English. However, the British did not act alone in this grand scheme of linguistic homicide. The Roman Catholic Church, and in truth, some parents, willingly cooperated with the foreign authorities in Dublin and London, each for their own reasons. The church hierarchy in the 1800s, and much later, saw Ireland as a backdoor to the United Kingdom and its empire, a Catholic salient in the Protestant bastion which could be used to bring England back into harmony with Rome. The indigenous language and culture of the Irish was an impediment to that great task which needed to be overcome. The peasantry on the other hand saw English as the language of government, of law and order, of food on the table and a roof over one's head. To speak English was to become English. It was to gain acceptance as a master, not as a figurative slave. For the same reasons that Roman Catholics converted to the Protestant faiths in the Great Famine of 1845-52, to simply survive, so too did the native Irish slowly and forcibly abandon their nationality as it had been known for millennia. That is when the beatings took place in the schools in Ireland. Throughout the 19th century and into the early 20th, school children were forbidden to speak in their mother tongue. If caught speaking Irish, reported by the teachers or informed on by fellow pupils, they would have a stick hung around their neck, the feared bartascoia or tally stick, into which notches were carved every time they were discovered to be speaking the forbidden language. At the end of the day or the week they were beaten in accordance with the number of notches on the tally stick, by the staff or by their parents. In some cases the local priest or Protestant minister would be informed so that the family could be privately or publicly chastised. And the beatings were horrific. Whip-like canes or knotted ropes were used as the child was held down by one or more adults depending on their age or willingness to fight back. In the case of the schools, these punishments were often carried out in front of their classmates as an example to others. Similar practices took place in other Celtic nations like the Welsh Knot in Wales and Le Symbol in Brittany.